Okay, we are now with the writing, directing, acting team of Molto Bella, co-writer, director Alexander Jeffery, co-writer, actor Paul Peterson, and actress, musician Andrea von Kampen. Thank you, everyone, for being with us at Sound and Scene. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about Molto Bella.
Having us.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys actually filmed this in 2020. Is that correct?
We filmed the majority of it in 2019 in Sicily, October, November, so about a year ago.
Okay.
We were finishing up, and then we had one little outstanding pickup shot that we needed to do in 2020 during the pandemic. So that was a very small crew in Shreveport, making it safe and just getting the movie done.
Okay. Well, yeah, that must have been sort of exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
Knowing that you had to finish your film, but that you were that close to completing it. But yeah, I guess, this is a question for everyone, but, tell the audience, I should say, sort of the origin story of, the creation behind Molto Bella and how you kind of got it moving and how you decided that you wanted to make a film in Sicily.
Yeah, so in 2013, I had moved back to Nebraska, and my friend Ray, who I knew through my cousin, actually, he was working for BlackBerry in Sweden, and he actually thought he was going to be leaving Sweden, and he wanted to make a film that was a love letter to that country, called The Philosopher King. And so I went over there, and that was the first real film set full-length feature film set that I'd had the experience to be a part of, and it was basically film school 2.0 for me. And after that experience, I was just really exhilarated with the idea of making a movie over in Europe. And I'd always been interested in Italy. And there was little potential romance that had blossomed on that set, and so I was thinking about romance, and I'd seen Before Sunrise right after that, and so I was kind of sculpting this idea of two Americans overseas in Italy that meet, and it kind of, the similarities sort of dropped off there. That was about 7 years ago, like I said, and the script was terrible. It was awful. It was bad. And in that process, I learned more about writing, started working with Paul, started working with Andrea. And the thing that got me excited to revisit that idea and kind of bring the movie to the direction where it is now was Paul did a film for Film Prize called Esmeralda, and I didn't realize he could write poetry. So I thought that would be an interesting element to bring to the story. And then we started working with Andrea on music videos, and just realizing, just how talented she was. I knew she was a talented musician, and I've been a huge fan of her music for a long time, but I didn't realize how good she was in front of the camera. And so I thought it was like, okay, we could maybe bring these musical elements to it. I love the diegetic music of that movie. And we could bring these poetry elements to it, and it could be this kind of pontification about collaboration in a European country.
Right, and I mean, I definitely, pick up on the collaboration and talk about, like you said, you're a fan of Andrea's work, but with you guys being based in Shreveport, Louisiana, and Andrea in Lincoln, Nebraska, what's the connection there?
So I got to know Andrea's brother, David, and we were in school at the University of Nebraska at the same time. And I think he sent me a message one time, knowing that we did film stuff, and he said, "You really need to listen to my sister's music. I think it would be good for the type of films that you make." And so I started listening to it, and I just became a fan. And I think, when did we first connect, Andrea? Was it the Tiny Desk?
Yeah, I didn't know that David had sent that, but I remember connecting with you with another local singer's music video. Yeah. I got on that shoot so that we could work together. But yeah, I mean, I think we might have maybe reached out around the Tiny Desk, just sort of contacted each other for the first time. I don't know, it's kind of all hazy, but it was sometime in there.
Yeah.
And the Tiny Desk, that's part of National Public Radio?
Yeah, I did. I just submitted a song I had written for a Tiny Desk contest. I think it was 2016 maybe. And they picked like the top 10 submissions that year, and mine happened to be one of them. So it was a nice bit of press there.
And Andrea, was this, I mean, outside of doing music videos, was this your first kind of feature role? And was it terrifying?
No, it was really easy. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, it was a bit daunting. I'm comfortable performing. I love performing. And so I thought, this is just another medium that I can do that through. But as the days got closer to the shoots, I mean, I think my messages to Alex got a bit more manic. Like, so what are your thoughts on this and that? And so, I mean, it was such a supportive crew, though. And I felt like there was a lot of space to really be creative and try and fail and do it again. And so I actually learned that I really loved like the repetitions of it, because I could like, try so many different ways and feel really comfortable. So it was daunting at first, but.
And Paul, you're the co-writer and sort of the lead actor. How did you prepare for this role? Was it any different than any other role that you'd done, given it was Andrea's kind of first time behind the camera, or was it sort of just natural instincts as being an actor, performer, that kind of took over for the role?
This one was kind of interesting just because, the story's so personal to Alex, and then we wanted to use some personal things from my life as well. So even at the screening we just did in Shreveport yesterday, I think someone asked Alex a question, or, so how do you mold Paul to just act like himself? Which is like, in acting, that is like the hardest thing to do, is just, to just be. So the preparation, I think, just came in. I think maybe Andrea could agree with this, sort of the way we shot too, because we did have time to do different takes, but at the same time, we didn't have much time. So we kind of just went after it. And also, I learned a new acting technique that's called, don't necessarily memorize your lines. But yeah, no, when it came to the approach, that was the script I would like to think was molded pretty well to who I was and what I was kind of capable of. So this is probably one of the more straight and narrow sort of just people that I've played.
And sort of by accident, the way that we started the shoot, the several people from the crew had flight issues and the gear didn't arrive on time. And so we had like the base level of things that we needed to start shooting with no first AC, just Joel behind the camera. And we did a scene, I think, some montage stuff first where there was no dialogue. And then the first actual dialogue scene that we did was a really simple scene with the two of them while he's unpacking in the villa, in the bedroom. And so I felt like we kind of got to warm into it just a little bit too, before we were just, hit the ground running, no time to breathe. So that was, I think it wasn't planned that way, but it kind of, I think, worked out nicely in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, that sort of is leading into sort of this next question, and you sort of answered it. I mean, working abroad, as Americans going over to Italy, I mean, was that something where you did bring, like you said, your own crew, or did you have to rely on locals to help out with maybe, some of the, I don't know, gaffers, lighting, extra type of work?
So it was a really small crew, and we brought everybody that was working behind the camera, or working on the crew behind the camera. But we connected with an Airbnb or a bed and breakfast owner there named Michele, and he is basically like the mayor of that town. That he knows everybody, and we couldn't have done it without him. He was our communication to all these local restaurants, helping us get with the I can't remember the title of the person, the cultural advisor there that gave us the permit to shoot in the town. He had those relationships so that we were able to make this kind of stuff happen for us. And so Richard, the production designer, and I went over about a month or two before we filmed and met with Michele, and he scouted the locations, the specific locations that we needed. And Michaela was able to get in touch with all those people for us and make that happen. But as far as the crew and the gear, we brought most of the gear with us and all of the crew with us. And then there was one Italian actor that we hired from Rome that flew down to meet us in Sicily for a day.
Oh, wow. And I mean, how long did you spend in Sicily? I imagine you were there a short amount of time. And I mean, you know, you were there actually, you know, forever long you were, but then how many days did you actually shoot in Italy?
Right. Yeah. So we were there for, I want to say 20 days, 3 weeks, something along that line. But we had initially scheduled it where we were going to arrive, have a day to prep, start shooting, and then have a day off each week, because that's what you're, typically what you're supposed to do on an indie film shoot is, shoot 5 or 6 days, take a day off, shoot 5 or 6 days. But with the way that the flights worked out and the way that, just the kind of bad luck with travel and luggage arriving, by the time we actually started shooting, it was such that we had to do the 18 days straight. Like we didn't have a break. So it was a lot of work. And that was, it was one thing that the three of us were talking about. Is like on paper, on social media, this looks like we're having, the most idyllic time of our lives, but it was a lot of work and a lot of stress and running around and in beautiful places, but it was tough.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. Now, this is, it's part of Sound Unseen, and Sound Unseen is a music film festival. So I do want to ask Andrea a little bit about the music that you composed for the film and how that sort of process and how that was sort of structured into the narrative arc of the film.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so Alex sent me the script and I kind of read through that a couple times. And then we kind of had an idea of the layout. Like, we want an upbeat song here. We want Josie's hit song to be, this sort of a tone. And so I kind of had like these prompts to write to, which was interesting because I don't do a lot of prompt writing. I sit down, I write every day. Eventually I have enough songs to make an album, and that's what I do. So sort of having like, okay, you need to write something that was really successful, that did really well and everyone loved, just go and do that. So it was sort of a fun challenge, and I had almost everything written before we left. And then I wrote the final song, Time and Space, Molto Bella. I wrote that when I got back, and that was sort of about the whole experience that the character had there. So, and I pulled inspiration from where we were shooting and stuff like that, because I wanted that song to feel really authentic to what had taken place. So that was sort of the process.
Okay. And Paul, with your poetry writing, was that like your own personal writing, or was that sort of a mixture of fiction and, personal writing?
That's a good question. So it's kind of in a way similar to Andrea's, because Alex had these points in the script where he wanted this sort of type of poem to talk about this part of the travels and, and the exploration of Sicily and such. So all of those were written like on set just before the scene. Like, so each of them were pretty much finished right before each scene. And those were just like all original that I wrote, with Sicily inspiring it. And then actually the last thing that I read to Josie, people have seen this, but
yes.
Last thing I read to Josie, before we part ways in Sicily, is actually part of my mom's actual eulogy from real life. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much that.
Now, Alexander, you were going to make this film in Sicily and Italy. When you're trying to figure out where the movement or even like the characters are sort of facing and blocking, and you're trying to get certain shots, of, the gorgeous scenery in Sicily. Did you ever have to like change things on the fly because certain lighting didn't work, or, I don't know what permits are like in Italy, or if you're just sort of, doing like guerrilla filmmaking and like going down the road to find a great spot for them to shoot? Like, can you give us a little bit about like location scouting, I guess is the roundabout question I'm asking.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. We had several spots in mind from that first trip there. We looked at the villa that we were going to be staying and filming in. The whole crew and cast stayed in that villa where the characters stay in the movie. And so we knew that was a big location for the whole film. And then when Richard and I went over there, we just kind of walked around and stumbled into restaurants and looked in different areas that we wanted to potentially film in. And then Michele made those connections for us to make that happen. But then there was some scenes where we would be setting up a shot and looking at the frame, and there was too much chaos going on, or it was too busy. It didn't make sense for what the characters were saying. And there, I remember a very specific scene is where Paul reads Andrea the poem Luca, and we were trying to film it at the entrance to the town, and it just didn't feel right. The lighting wasn't warm. It
was also trash day.
That's right.
Remember that?
That's right.
Yeah, there was.
Everyone was taking their trash out. Just every shot of these mountains of trash.
Which wasn't exactly what we were going for.
Yeah.
And so I think Paul actually was just walking around and found this back alley that was beautiful, and he's like, "Why don't we shoot it here?" And we're like, "All right, we're shooting it here," and it worked out great. And same thing happened with the ending argument as well, outside of the bar where Elizabeth and Paul are having drinks, and initially that was supposed to take place in an alleyway just up the bar, but again, too much foot traffic, it just didn't look great, and we started wandering around, and down the stairs from this bar where they were at was another really cool kind of alleyway, back roads kind of looking place that again had the warm, pretty light and just felt more right for the scene. And so we adapted on the fly when we had to, and it was very run and gun, because when we make movies here, I'm used to having a dolly and some options to move the camera and that kind of thing. And we were really, I'm not locked in, but we had, most of our shots were on sticks, and a lot of it was static. So it was just thinking about filmmaking in a different way and kind of trying to use those limitations so they didn't feel like limitations.
Sure. Well, and, I mean, I guess I can say this openly, but, Alexander and Paul, like, you guys are friends of mine. I've seen your films at Film Prize in Shreveport in Louisiana that you mentioned earlier, Film Prize. So just for context, but I mean, you're making a 90-minute feature versus like a 15-minute short. So what were, something that came more natural in making this feature, or something that was a lot more difficult than you were used to dealing with?
The thing that I found the most surprising about doing a longer form piece was the marathon aspect of it. I mean, when you're shooting a scene, it's very similar to how you're shooting a scene for a short. You're using all the same elements. Same with the writing. It is more challenging to make a story compelling over 90 minutes for sure. But I just found when you do a short, you're doing 3 to 5 days, and it's a burst of energy, and you're exhausted by the end of it. And when you reach 5 days on a feature, you're a third of the way there, and you're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through the 5 days? And so that aspect of it, people had warned me about that, but until I went through it myself, I was like, wow, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and you have to take care of yourself and think things through, try not to rush everything. And that, I found that the most surprising. But what about y'all?
I mean, specifically for me, the shorts that we've done for the Film Prize, for instance, I mean, I feel like those are always good practice grounds for us to do the feature, because we've often had the same crew each time.
Yeah.
And then similar to shooting whenever we collaborate with Andrea on her music videos, so there's already, like, I don't want to say a set chemistry there between everybody, but we all kind of knew how we all clicked.
Yeah.
And I think that helped us. So that doesn't really answer that general question, but specifically for this, I think that helped. But I don't know. What do you think, Andrea?
And
I agree. I mean, if the question's about the difference of shorts and a long film, I've never been in a short, but comparing it to a music video, I do think I sort of understood the pattern of, like, okay, wait, okay, go. And sort of knowing, because our Portland music video shoot, I mean, we flew there, we shot that thing in 48 hours. Like, that was a grueling shoot. But, it was like a great practice run for, like, just the spontaneity of it all, and kind of shooting in a city you don't know much about, and just having to kind of go for it in front of, you know, people watching you who have no idea what you're up to.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Portland was kind of a microcosm of Sicily in a way, where it was like, it was a group of friends that showed up to a city that we weren't super familiar with, and made something there. And that's really what the feature was in a much longer format.
And yeah, something that I really appreciate a lot about this film is sort of the open-endedness at the end of, you know, it's not tied together, you know, and it looks like that audiences could be sort of divided and what's going to happen next between these two characters. And I wonder from each of you if you have similar versions of how you think the story continues, or if you think differently from one another. I'm just sort of curious because I have my own theories, but you know, that's something that I did appreciate about Molto Bella a lot, was that you didn't answer all the questions and you left it open-ended. And I think that's something that you don't see a lot in a lot of American films, at least, maybe more foreign or avant-garde films. But I mean, this is, you know, a narrative that's pretty straightforward, but then, you know, in that closing scene, you know, what happens next?
I think Josie plays an amazing show. No, I'm just joking. It's the best show of her life. No, I always sort of assumed that they ended up together. I mean, what did you guys think?
I kind of want to know what Jim thought first before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sort of leaning towards like, yes, they get together. I'm not 100% sure on that, but if I had to pick one way or another, they end up together or they don't end up together, I would probably say more like 65-35, they end up together.
So the way that I kind of always thought about the ending was we begin the movie with Josie trying to write a new song that she's proud of, and we end the movie with that song that she's written. And to me that was like, you couldn't do anything after that. I felt like anything after that moment was forcing it down the audience's throat. Like you were saying, kind of leaving it open-ended. She's completed that journey of writing this song, and to me that was the moment it had to be done. You will notice if you look closely, she's not wearing the wedding ring while she's playing the song at the end. So to me, it's she's probably not with Dean anymore, but is she going to be with Hal? I don't really even know in my own head.
I remember when we were like looking at the script and talking about it, didn't we entertain, or at least I brought it up once, like what if she actually is wearing the wedding ring while she's playing?
Yeah.
So we almost did go that direction. I think that maybe it's like a 5-minute, you know, spout of thought. I don't know. But I think after the show, they go get a cocktail and maybe they chat a little bit, and they're at least going to be really good collaborative friends. So I'm going to go down the middle there.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, I'm glad we didn't end it that way. Let's be platonic collaborators.
No, I think there's definitely, the thing that was important to me about their relationship was that they are kindred spirits, right? Like it's beyond just an attraction. They are kindred creative spirits, and their friendship. One of the things that I found true about being overseas, especially traveling to make that movie in 2013, was that when you go by yourself, you know, somewhere that you're unfamiliar with, especially in Hal's case, there's a immediate vulnerability that comes with that. And I think when you meet somebody who you have some common ground with, that connection that would happen, you know, over a period of time in a place you're familiar with happens instantaneously. And so for me, like, I think it was kind of more about creating that lost in translation sort of friendship and clear bond between these two. And again, just leaving it up for the audience of what's going to happen romantically between them. So.
Okay, we'll wrap it up here with kind of with two questions. One, I'm guessing is probably a shorter answer than the other, but this is for Andrea. Now that you've acted in Molto Bella, do you feel like you want to continue doing more acting, or would you rather be a performer, musician, and maybe if acting opportunities come along, you would entertain them?
Yeah, I mean, it's really driven by the project. Like I plan to keep making, oh, that's my dog Rosie. I plan to keep making albums because that's my full-time job and that's what I love to do. But, you know, if a great script came along and someone was, willing to let me try again, I totally would. So I'm not going to say no. And of course, Alex, I will be in Molto Bella too, which will be set in Greece. So.
In Greece?
That's my other boyfriend's villa.
What about Barcelona?
Okay, yeah, we can figure it out later. But anyways, yes, Jim, I would totally do something again, but it's really project driven. You know, I want to do something I'm interested in and like the script of.
And as far as your music, how can people on this Q&A find out more about where your music is?
Yeah, so all streaming sites, you can find it there, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, Apple, YouTube. And then I did just finish a record, so that will be out sometime in 2021. And I know it's a little early, but I released 2 Christmas songs today, so I'm not forcing anyone to listen yet, but they're there if you want them.
It's called the Midwest Christmas.
It's called the Midwest Christmas.
Midwest Christmas. Mm-hmm. And to wrap this up, I guess this is for everyone. What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
So one of the things that my sister told me right after she watched it is she never realized how kind of frightening it can be to make something and then put it out in the world and kind of be like, this is a little piece of who I am. And so the fact that she kind of hadn't looked at, all forms of art, music, poetry, film, theater, like anything in that way before, I thought was really exciting. And so if more people kind of get that sense of, the creative who's behind the work and that kind of leap of faith that they have to take to put themselves out there, that would be exciting for me.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I guess to piggyback on it, it would just, for me, it's, to not, the typical thing you hear in every single, like, hype speech, but I mean, to not be afraid to maybe fail and take a chance and put yourself out there, because you never know what great things could allow you to build yourself up and flourish and become, something more.
And also with the world right now, nobody can travel. Sicily just locked down again. So to be able to see this scenery through the vessel of our movie, I just hope that people kind of feel that wanderlust that, pre-pandemic that we can have. So
you want the audience to feel the wanderlust and then not be able to travel. That's
no.
That's well put. So this is screening at Sound Unseen. This Q&A is available worldwide. So where is the film, if you can mention, where is it going to play after it's done screening at Sound Unseen?
I think all of that's kind of up in the air right now. We're talking to some sales agents, and our goal is to get as many eyeballs on the film as possible. So we'll continue to submit to film festivals until we sell it, and I hope that it will be available for everybody to watch and listen to the soundtrack soon. We'll see. Very
good. Well, Andrea, Paul, Alexander, thank you all so much for sharing this beautiful film with Sound Unseen and our audience, and wish you guys all the best of luck.
Thank you for the support and for showing it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jim.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.